Hey guys, we are live coming to you answering any heating and air questions that you have. If you have any questions that I don't know the answer to, which is not impossible, we sometimes have some other pros that are joining us and we will try to get the answer to that question. I thought I would start tonight's show out with a story. Where is this at? Nashville, I guess. I don't know if Tullahoma. I don't know if that's the name of the nursing home or if maybe that's an area near Nashville. If you guys are any of you are from Nashville, know this area, let me know. But this story's coming from a news source in Nashville, and it says Tullahoma. I'm probably not pronouncing that. Tullahoma, maybe Tullahoma. Nursing home evacuated after an HVAC fire. Flames were visible when fire crews arrived on the scene. And bear with me, guys. I'm going to make one quick change to my audio here. You guys have told me in the past that I sound better when I make this one change. And so hopefully you can hear me a little better now. So yeah, it's Tullahoma nursing home evacuated after an HVAC fire. The flames were visible when fire crews arrived on the scene. Tullahoma, Tennessee. So I guess that's a town right there near Nashville, possibly. No one was injured after an HVAC fire at a Tullahoma nursing home on Friday night. Thank God no one was injured. When Tullahoma fire department crews arrived at the Life Care Center of Tullahoma. I'm going to stop saying that word now because I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. Just after 9:15 p.m., flames were visible coming from an HVAC unit on the roof. Crews evacuated most of the building because of the fire. The Tullahoma Fire Department, with assistance from the Manchester Fire Department, was able to put the fire out. A temporary triage area was set up due to the various medical needs of the evacuated patients. Officials said a handful of rooms affected by smoke and water. Most of the damage came from water used to extinguish the fire. Once areas were cleared and air quality verified, patients and staff were placed back in the facility. There were no injuries to patients, staff, or emergency responders. At least 9 EMS ambulances from 6 surrounding counties responded to the scene to assist the evacuation and possible transport of patients. What's crazy about this is this gross looking picture to the right here. Let me see if I can zoom in to get that picture out of here. We are committed to the safety and well-being of our residents, said Executive Director of Life Care Center Alex Boutaud. We are grateful for the compassion and professionalism displayed by our staff as they swiftly jumped into action and took skillful steps to protect our residents and ensure everyone stayed calm and comfortable throughout the event. Boutaud also expressed the center's gratitude for the quick response from the local fire personnel, EMS, and hospital associates, and thanked them for their bravery. I hate stories like this because they never tell us more, and they never tell us why the fire started, why, what's the deal here, heating and air systems don't just catch on fire. Usually there's a problem with how it was installed. There's a problem with how it was maintained. There's a problem with, something is wrong. And so that's one of the things I hate about stories like this. They don't tell us the full story. They don't tell us why things caught on fire. It drives me nuts. So anyway, welcome to the show. Gary, Ed, Larry, does a window mini split have lower electric than a similar sized window AC unit? We'll get back to that in just a moment. Hey to Carl, Mark, Bob, Gil, Tech Junkie, Ed. Tullahoma is a town. Got it. AC System Service with Kevin, South Florida in the house. Hey to you, Kevin. Brian, good to see you, buddy. Emery, and I think that's hi to everyone. So good to see everybody. Getting back to Larry's question here, does a window mini split have lower electric than a similar sized window AC unit? So I'm not sure if I know exactly what you're talking about, unless you're talking about these newer inverter type window units. They're a little more pricey, but they have the ability to ramp up and down like a standard inverter system. I don't know if they're quite as efficient, quite as quiet, quite as, performance, Honestly, I haven't laid hands on one yet. I've just heard about them. And so I think ultimately the answer to your question is any sort of mini split or inverter type system is going to be a little more efficient in general, typically, if they operate like a standard inverter system. And there will be times when it's at 100% capacity, meaning everything is running, that maybe it will draw just as much energy as a standard single stage type system where it just kicks on and off, or maybe it has some multiple stages there. If it's an inverter style system in general, it should be a little more efficient, I would say. But maybe if you give me a little more context, maybe we can dive into that a little further. Emery, who always comes out with some great questions, says, how is the size of ductwork determined via manual D? I use it's called a ductulator. And so you put in what you want your static pressure what it should be, for either the supply or return. And then you go from that. It tells you the sizes of ducts that will meet what you're trying to accomplish. Brian says, I'm going to be careful about how I text. I do that every night. Every show, I'm very careful about the things that I say and do on here. So I hear you on that. Tech Junkie says, I worked at a nursing home, and Train left the heaters running in the cooling tower, and it got cold that night. The cooling tower was empty. So yeah, wow. I tell you, nursing homes and rehab facilities and just places like that where they're really counting on folks. Sometimes I feel like those places maybe should even meet maybe even higher standards or higher codes of care, to the heating and air systems. Maybe even so far as to say, like, bridges have checklists here in America, right? So there are, here I am acting like I know anything about bridges. I'm just regurgitating things that I've heard. And I know, like, here in the state of Virginia, there is somebody or something, some sort of committee that will come out and they'll, inspect the bridge periodically, annually maybe, and it needs to, check the boxes, if you will. It needs to meet certain standards to, continue to operate. They have even said, this is not safe. You cannot drive on this bridge now. Or they'll say, this bridge, it's time to replace it or make a repair or whatever. And sometimes I think that heating and air should almost have something like that in place as well, especially if you're going to have a facility where folks are counting on you, so much. Maybe floating on my one wheel. Hey, Ryan, compressors don't die. They are murdered. Very true. In most cases, very true. Tech Junkie, you mean a home window unit that is an inverter? Yes, window units. Sorry, guys. I'm just reading through. I'm trying to get caught up here. He says, Tech Junkie says, I had one. I noticed no difference having a 1-ton versus my 3-ton ducted attic unit, LOL. So that's interesting. You're welcome, Larry. Horace, inverters are awesome. Horace is I don't know if he wants me to tell y'all who he is. I'll let him tell me in this chat if he's okay with me telling everyone here who he is. But good to see you on our show, Horace. Horace is a good friend of mine. I'll just say that, and then we'll see if he lets me say anything further than that. Brian says, I use a NCI cheat sheet for duct. I use the one of those old Train ductulators with the round dial. Tech Junkie says, I also have my 608 Universal certification now. Congrats, pal. Dave, what up, Josh? Sorry I'm late to your live. Good to see you. Dave, if you are still on here, I was emailing with Adrian, and we all need to do something. He was actually talking about maybe us doing a live show on his channel. So get with him. Because some of the ideas we were throwing back and forth, I thought were pretty good. Ryan says, I never saw anything about the enhanced Daikin fit. Do you know if Daikin ever released any press documentation on it? So I do know that they released some things to their local distributors. I had that verified by our local sales rep today, actually. And I will tell you that I found out that they're no longer going to be calling it, or at least for now, they're not calling it that verbiage right now, Ryan. So I don't know what that means. The email I got said that, they're going to be adding an E to the model number, but as far as the verbiage or the marketing, they are not calling it the enhanced fit right now. And so what that means for the future, I don't know. I don't know if, they're going to maybe call it something else, or maybe there's more to it. Maybe something else is coming out with it, and maybe that's why they've changed that. But I do know that they, as far as I know, at this very moment, they're not going to be using that verbiage. Emery says, do you still see pre-train acquisition GE units in your area? I have not seen one in a long time, but I did see one. We replaced one when I first started Griffin Air, and which was kind of cool. So, but I don't see many. Brian says, bridges impact your life more than me. I live near the water. He's very correct. Tom, good to see you from Illinois. Jason, Ty Brannaman just shared a chart about compressors. Only 2% are true manufacturer-related problems. Yeah, I tell you, I think that a big majority of just issues in general have to do with, the installation of heating and air systems and things like that. I think what a lot of guys like me, a lot of guys in our position might struggle with sometimes is we'll hear manufacturers point to stats like that. And to me, they're made up stats, Jason. And the reason I say that is I have had manufacturers, one in particular, say to me, well, your installers are the problem. And I'll say to them, look, we install this brand over here and we have no issues. We install them all the time. And then it seems like every now and then we'll slip one of yours in there and we'll do an install and there's a freaking issue. And so I am one of the believers that not all manufacturers are created equal. I think they all have their quirks, but I think there are some people that, believe that some certain brands can do no wrong, and they're drinking the Kool-Aid, and I disagree with them on some of those brands. We'll just say that. Horace says, yes, I can. So Horace is my local sales rep that I was just alluding to. He puts up with a lot of crap from me. I'm always calling him about every little thing, and he takes good care of us. So he's never allowed to quit where he's working. Brian says Ty is pretty smart. I've heard a lot of good things. In fact, Ty is going to be, I don't know if it's tonight or if it's next week, but there is another YouTube channel called Reliable HVAC, and he is going to have Ty as a guest here soon. So little plug there. I get nothing out of plugging Adrian's channel, but I will tell you that channel is mostly heating and air guys talking about very techie, high-end things. In fact, it's sometimes above my pay grade. They'll sometimes be talking about supermarket, refrigeration and things like that. So I don't know that you would find it very entertaining, but Ty is supposed to be a guest on that show at some point. Emery says, oh, sorry, Ryan. I would love to see a conversation with you and Dave. I see in the comments, similar to the conversation you had with the British guy, you both have different perspectives, Dave being DIY. Dave and I have had conversations, not on a YouTube channel, and I don't really have that big of a perspective, and I'll tell you why in just a second from Dave. I just don't make the exact type of videos that Dave does, because to be honest with you, liability. So some of the things that Dave is sharing, he is even careful, I think, or at least he should be. And so I think that he's coming from a good place. And a lot of times he's saying to homeowners, look, it's your system. It's, if you feel like you know what you're doing and you feel that you can do what I'm about to show you how to do, then, you know, I'm going to show you how to do it, is kind of, I think is his perspective for the most part. But my whole thing with a lot of these guys that do have a problem, and I've told Dave this, you know, there are guys, heating and air guys, and maybe some of you are in this chat right now that seem to have a problem with some of his stuff, but you don't have a problem with some of these other heating and air guys that do YouTube videos for other YouTube guys. So they'll make a video on how to clean a system, for example, and you're okay with that because the video is supposed to be for other heating and air guys. And then Dave makes the same video, how to clean a heating and air system, and he gets all this hate. And my perspective on that is, you think homeowners are not watching this guy's videos? You know, I think it's a little hypocritical for somebody to not be a fan of that. So, you know, I think that I do think for me, again, there's some liability there. There are certain things that I won't ever do a video on. But you know, that doesn't mean somebody else won't do it or Dave won't do it. And you guys can watch that video and learn how to do it. You know, you know, one example might be if I were to do a video on how to replace a capacitor, and that capacitor that you're replacing happens to be in one of these newer system that has DC voltage in it, and you were to get shocked and hurt and or die, I would feel pretty bad about that, you know? So that's just one example of what I'm talking about. So anyway, most of my stuff is for homeowners, trying to help them avoid some of the problems dealing with heating and air guys, help them understand what some of the verbiage is in our industry when they're buying a heating and air system and things like that. So I actually think if you're a fan of Dave's stuff and my stuff, they can kind of pair together a little bit. They can, you know, work one and one together, whatever the verbiage is. I'm looking there. Emery says, fun fact, spine fin coils were a GE thing before Trane purchased their HVAC products in the 80s. That's very correct. And in fact, I think American Standard was the first one to purchase GE. If I remember correctly, reading the whole timeline of things, I could be wrong, but I think American Standard acquired GE's heating and air side of things before Trane acquired because then American Standard split, and then there was a plumbing side and a heating and air side. But yeah, that's definitely very true. Tech Junkie says installation was a bigger impact on efficiency than the equipment. Ryan says you both are pros, but appear to be pushing completely different agendas, with you advocating to get a pro, with him being you can do it yourself and save. Not untrue. That is, you know, I wouldn't say I'm pushing an agenda, but I would say that he and I do have maybe different philosophies with some of our videos. That's safe to say. Brian says all brands have problems. I would agree with that. They all have their pros and cons. AC Systems with Kevin says, we've had 4 Goodman package units compressors die within 6 months of install, so I call BS on tech errors. Brian says HVAC 2.0 is also a little above average. Homeowners are lazy. Very few know they can be cleaned. I have never seen one actually cleaned in my life, except for the 2 condensers I've cleaned. I tell you, I just read a statistic the other day, and you know how statistics are. 60% of them are made up. But I just read a statistic the other day that it said that only 30% of homeowners across America have their systems maintained at least annually. And so I thought that was a crazy statistic. And, you know, I don't know if I have any data to show what our percentages are, but we do have customers that will not maintain their system at all, and then they wonder why they have issues, which is always kind of crazy to me. Jim, I'm not sure I've seen your name before, so welcome to the show. Is it hard to replace fan limiter switch on furnace? Old ream. I wouldn't say it's hard, no. Maybe Dave, if you watch Dave's channel, he can show you how. Kevin says, I know when customers YouTube repairs, when we do it, they kind of understand what we are doing. Yeah, I'll tell you the other thing on my perspective on this is I won't work behind anyone else. And that's not just homeowners. I've had a few customers have a hard time understanding that I won't work behind anyone else. To me, there's too much liability there as well. And what I mean by liability is, let's just say a homeowner has another heating and air company get in there, and then we're in there working, they're in there work, whatever the timeline is there chronologically. And then something's wrong, and then that homeowner wants us to cover it under warranty and things like that. It's just not something that I will do. Just full transparency, I just won't do it. If I have a homeowner, if I have a customer that either they are in there making repairs or trying to fix things, or they have a family member, if they have another heating and air company, if they have a handyman, if they have anybody other than someone from my company in there working, I usually won't work behind them. And I try to be nice about it. I just say, look, it's just not a fit. I'm not your guy. And I know a lot of folks have a hard time understanding that, and some of you might, but I'm just letting you know. Some guys feel the same way. Brian says, all I know is there are 10 screws to get the square train G top off. TO3 knee. I'm not sure I've seen your name on here, so welcome to the show. Currently got a project going for a Daikin 5-ton heat pump HVAC being installed in the attic. We have a 2-story house, and they're suggesting to put thermostat upstairs. Not sure if want thoughts. So I guess knee, I'll just call you knee. My question would be, is the system going to do both floors? And if the answer is yes, I'm not sure it matters where the thermostat is located if you only have one. And to drive this a little further, you should check out my video where I go through zoning issues and how heat rises in homes, and you can size the ductwork properly for the upstairs to get enough cool air dumping up there. But then all of a sudden winter comes around, and now you've got this oversized ductwork dumping too much heat upstairs when the heat is still rising. So check that out. I would definitely recommend zoning it if you're only going to have one system for the entire 2-story house. And that would, to answer your question, that would mean you would have a thermostat on both floors, or at least each zone, depending on how many zones you have. So Tech Junkie says that seems crazy high. I honestly don't think that would be high for my area, but I bet there's areas of the country that would be high. So yeah, it might be. Maybe, I'm not sure how they came up with that figure. Again, a lot of stats are just made up, but in my area, 30 might be a little low, to be honest. So Chloe, welcome to the show. I don't think I've seen your name before. Bosch 3-ton 18 SEER 10 HSPF variable package unit. Can the tonnage be switched from 3 to 2? I think yes. At least the split systems, that's how it is. It's just a simple dip switch, and you tell it what you want the capacity to be set at. Jan says, welcome to the show, Jan. My friend had an AC repair and installer put a 3-ton heat and air unit outside, replacing one that went down when the next door neighbor's house burned down. She had a 2.5-ton working slow. Okay. Emery says, what are the most common reasons for premature compressor failures? Poor maintenance, poor installation of the heating and air system, poor airflow would be one, and dirty power might be another one, like brownouts and surges. Refrigerant not being charged correctly, possibly. And you guys might think I'm nuts on that, but I was just talking to somebody the other day, and they didn't know what subcool was, and they had been doing they work for a competing company. I was just floored. So let's see. Brian says COVID kind of did that. Maintenance man can get me sick. Tech Junkie throwing out a few more. Dirty coils, filters, liquid slugging. Yep. Ed says, I watched a ton of channels like HVA School and AC Service Tech and a few others to learn the stuff to get my EPA certification. Nice. Yeah, I tell you, and that's why I struggle with some of the people that we sometimes hire. The education's out there if you want it. In fact, I don't even think this is a stretch. I've learned more from either working in the field or watching YouTube videos. And I don't watch a lot of Craig or Brian stuff, or at least when I first started out, I didn't. But Gray Furnace Man, I used to watch a ton of his stuff. I used to watch him all the time. And there's a few others, a couple guys that I don't think they even make videos anymore, but there was a guy named Dr. Z. I'd always watch his stuff. I don't know. I always thought he was entertaining. Tech Junkie says, Jan, that unit will never work correctly. Her electric bill is going to go up for sure. Unit will probably die within 5 years. John says, Josh, will new Daikin Enhanced Fit have preheat capability, i.e. turn on? I don't know any specs on the new Fit coming out. So I don't know anything about it. I don't even know what the SEER rating on it's going to be. SEER 2 rating. So I'm not sure on that. Tech Junkie says, what, blah, blah, blah. He's talking to a couple of you guys. Ryan says, what do you mean working behind anyone else? So you won't take on customers with existing systems, or are you saying once you start with the customer, they can't have another contractor besides you? The latter. So, in other words, I'll give you a good example. I had a customer that had another company come in and do a repair, and then they still wanted us to do the maintenance to the system. And I had to just tell them, yeah, it's just not something we do. What if they have an issue with that system? Who are they going to call? Are they calling us? Are they calling them? I don't know. I don't mess with it. They're either what's the word? I'm drawing a blank on what the word is, but they're either fully using us or they're not. There's no in between for us. Brian says, I'm plus and minus on following someone. I'm up for the challenge. I'm not up to sending a technician for stupid. It's not even about it's not about the challenge or any of that. It's about liability for me. It's about having an upset customer when something's wrong. So they call us because something's wrong, and then I find out their brother-in-law or their handyman or somebody was in there working. It's just not something that I do. Maybe there's guys out there that'll do whatever, but those same guys might not warranty things like we do, So I don't know. There's different thought processes on that. Kevin says, working behind someone else is not good. Last hand on the system owns the problem. We walk. Yeah, we just don't touch it. Like if we find out that they're using someone else, we just kindly let them know this, it's just not something we do. Brian says it's kind of automatic. Bosch runs off temperature. Set what you want. Alvaro says, is the difference between single stage or two stage greater than two stage variable speed? Now, let me wrap my brain around this question. Is the difference between single stage to two stage greater? No, it is not greater. I think there's a greater efficiency going from any stages to a true communicating variable speed system, inverter system. And I've made videos on, all the advantages there are to those systems. But yeah, in fact, I have a video coming up where we're going to dive into comparing systems and SEER ratings and all the other ins and outs. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. How there's, if you're comparing a 16 SEER, single stage to a 16 SEER 2-stage versus, or if you're comparing like an 18 SEER staged system to an 18 SEER inverter system, it's not fair. It's not apples to apples because of the capabilities of those systems. Horace, yeah, I got your text, Horace. If you're still here on the show, if I get in trouble for calling the fit at these different verbiages, that kind of protects me a little bit. So let's see. Jan says the guy has checked it out several times, but doesn't know what the problem is. Is it that he had put in the 3-ton instead of the 2.5 she had? Let me go back to your original comment because I didn't know if there was a question there. My friend had an AC repair and installer put a 3-ton heater outside, replacing one that went down. Next year it burned down. She'd had a 2.5-ton working slow. I would need to know more to answer those questions, Jan, and I'll tell you why. There are indoor units that can be paired with multiple systems. So there is a such thing as air handlers that are can work with multiple capacity outdoor units. So is it possible? Yes, it's possible, but does that mean that's the 100% the reason they're having an issue? Maybe not. It just kind of depends. John says, do you feel UV lights bathing the AC coil raise static much? I wouldn't think it would mess with the static at all, or at least very little. I don't think. I can't imagine why a UV light would mess with the static much at all. Brian says, MeasureQuick is my friend. Yes, MeasureQuick is definitely a good tool to have for sure. Brian says Sears block, comfort is key. Chloe says 970 square foot home with 6 supply, 6-inch duct, and 1 return at 14 by 24. Do you think I need to have 2 tonnage for my size home, or is 3-ton oversized? 3-ton would be very oversized for my area, but it kind of depends on You would need a proper heat load calculation done. I can tell you if you have a mobile home that a lot of those with the high static mobile home furnaces, they will oversize the capacity for a number of reasons. So I would recommend having a proper heat load calculation, especially if it's a normal home that does not have a mobile home furnace, and have a proper heat load calculation done. And don't, have it done right, so that way, for sure. But 3-ton would be a lot to push, especially the airflow, pushing 3 tons, 1,200 CFMs through 6-inch supply ducts. That ain't happening. Not without having issues. Brian says they didn't like them, contract them in. Alex, good to see you. I don't know that I've seen your name on our show, so welcome to the show. I do understand that inverter systems come with a built-in overvoltage protector. I know it sounds overkill, but would it be worth it to install a Cool Guard 2 voltage monitoring system? Let's see. I'm not familiar with that product, so I'm looking it up. Is that a phase monitor? It looks like it's it says a voltage monitor. If it does the same thing that a phase monitor does, which it might be, it says voltage monitoring and surge protection. Then those are a good idea, especially if it's an inverter system. We've had inverter systems that had like board failures, and the one time in particular I can think of, we had a board fail, and 2 weeks later the same board failed on this multi-zone mini split, and the manufacturer told us, hey, we're going to give you this part again, and it is under warranty, but you need to get a phase monitor installed on that system. So Brian says you do live deep. Boom. All right, I'm going to take a break from the comments, and we are going to have a quick little segment. For those of you that have never joined us before, I'll normally do a breakaway segment. Sometimes we'll share, fake inventions. Sometimes we'll ask the audience a question, and sometimes we've done some other things. But tonight we are going to do our goofy inventions, and this is actually a serious invention more than some of the others that I've done, because I think that what I'm about to go over is something that we will possibly see in the future. And so my question is, if you were to have a system, a heating and air system that sensed you in the room. And so we already have ductless units that have those eyes that will split the air if it sees you in the room, so it's not shooting air directly on you. But I don't know that we've seen too many systems that almost like proximity lighting, so like if you were to walk from one room to the other, this room were to turn the lights off, this room would to turn the lights on. Some of these smart homes have capabilities like that. And of course, proximity lighting's been around for years, but just kind of having that smart home that senses where you are in the home as you move throughout the home, lights turn on and off based on your location in the home. And I wonder if heating and air systems will have that sort of capability as well. And so it will sense where you and maybe other members of your home are located in the home. I don't think it would be out of the realm of possibility that that's something that will be very possible and become the norm at some point for some homes. Now, if you have an older home that you don't even have central air in there, well then, this might be a little bit of a stretch. But some of these homes we're seeing built, we've even seen Elon Musk get into this building homes game and have these houses you can have made, or, these small homes or whatever. But just having these smart homes, is this something that, we could see I think it would even go one step further than zoning, where the system would actually sense, oh, you're not in this area of the house anymore. We're not going to heat and cool that space as well. We're going to make the range of temperature bigger. And then now that you're in this space, we're going to make the temperature range a lot smaller, make it more comfortable in that room. And then I could also see a system like that, especially with today's technologies, having capabilities of learning your habits. So on every Monday you go to work, so we're going to operate this way, but every Sunday you like to sit down in this room and watch football, we're going to operate that way. And so anyway, what are your thoughts? Is that something you would even be interested in? I do think that there's a little bit of a, big brother type element to something like that, but I'd be curious what your thoughts are. Is that something that you would be interested in and go from there? So, and I also posted a question when we started tonight's show. I'll go back to that original question, and that was, are you interested in having a system that an HVAC company can connect to, that they can connect to that thermostat, make changes, know if there's a problem, have an error, and maybe repair or make changes to that system remotely? Is that something that you would be interested in? I can tell you that is not an invention. It's already out, and a lot of companies are offering it already. Some of them offer it in-house. Some of them are offering it third party. And yeah. TT says, if they sell a system and don't check your ducts, it's a scam. I don't know if it's a scam, but they're definitely lazy. And they didn't do you a very good service. Chloe says 20-year-old train 14 ton 2-ton. Jim, welcome to the show, says, how difficult would it be for a homeowner to install geothermal system if they can operate the equipment, and what would they save in costs for excavation? Well, I think you would save thousands. That's the answer to that question. In fact, a lot of heating and air guys don't even do the excavation part themselves, at least not here in Virginia. A lot of them will have almost like a well drilling company or someone like that bury the loops and then take the loops that are inside the house and install the heating and air system. So, but to answer your question, I think you would save thousands of dollars. Yeah. Horse talking about this word that I don't know if I can continue to say. I don't want to get in trouble, but I don't think I can if they were calling it, what Daikin was calling it there for a little bit. Kevin says, we just started installing the Hvac. So far, they are doing great in comfort and efficiently. Keep us updated on that, Kevin, if you change your mind, or if you still like them. I know some guys that like them, and I know some guys that hate them. I have honestly not laid hands on one. I was invited to a class, and I didn't go. So, John says, can you have too much return duct capacity? Why don't we see more returns in every bedroom? I think in residential, for the most part, the consensus is you can't have too much return ducts, meaning the size. It can't be too large. And then I think to answer your question, why don't we see more returns in every single bedroom? In certain parts of the country, they don't do it that way. And honestly, I think if you lay out the home, at least most homes, correctly, and there's airflow underneath the doors and things like that, that you don't necessarily need to have a return in every single room, especially if they're small rooms. But to answer your question, why don't they do it? Like, I live in a house, honestly, that they should have a return in the master bedroom, and they don't. Every night when we go to bed, we leave our door open for that one reason, because there's no return on that end of the house, and it should be. And so I think to answer your question is probably money. They probably put the least amount of everything they can when they build homes, the least amount of returns, the least amount of whatever, and the smallest system they can to heat and cool the home. And, I think because of that, and a lot of times systems are wrong right from the get-go because they're being cheaply installed. A lot of the inspectors, all they care about these days, they'll do duct blast tests, they'll do blower door tests and things like that. And I'll take that back. They are getting better about, in some areas, requesting or mandating that a proper heat load calculation is performed. But aside from that, there's no way for the inspector to know if certain things were done correctly, sized correctly, installed correctly, without, seeing just general problems, and it's usually the homeowner in the end that, pays the price. So I've actually made this recommendation to people before, is if you are building a home, then you tell that builder you're going to pick the heating and air company and the system that's installed, and then you just won't pay. They won't be able to do any markup on that. They need to give you their price to build that home without the heating and air, and then you might pay a little more, but you're gonna go around them and pick out your own heating and air company and make sure it's done right and so on. Does that mean you're gonna avoid all issues? No, unfortunately it doesn't. But it does avoid the builder from just picking the cheapest guy. Alvaro says, I'm getting a system installed and was quoted for Carrier and Day and Night. They told me it's the same machine but different sticker. Is this true? It's the same company, but it would not be the same machine. Day and Night is an ICP product which is owned by Carrier, but as I understand it, for the longest time, I know this was true. Now, maybe it's changed. But I don't think it has. And that is, even though Carrier owns ICP, there is a difference in the product. So Carrier and Bryant are, basically the same equipment, different stickers. And then all of the ICP stuff is the same as one another and different stickers, different, branding. But aside from that, you can actually look at the units and tell they're not the same. I mean, I'll show you an example right here. So share this tab. So if we go Carrier heat pump and we just click images here on Google and we come down, here are what Carrier heat pumps look like. So you got the cheaper models that they don't protect the coils very well. They got that chicken wire is what I call it. And then they've got these over here, where they have their higher end models that, they're supposed to be like their Infinity series. It's their more premium products. And then they put the, what Goodman and Daikin and all these other brands put on their base models. They put these louvered units, So, I probably shouldn't have said that. But it is one thing I'm not a fan of Carrier's lower end units because of that chicken wire. So then we click over here to ICP, and they do have that chicken wire look right there. But if you come over here and look at their higher end models, see how much different that looks? I mean, it's almost got a corner with holes in it, almost like a York unit, but then it has like the chicken wire on the front. So, they just don't, if anything, they don't look the same. Now, they may say it's the same company, same engineering and all of that, fine, but it's not the same unit. They don't even look the same, at least they haven't for the longest time. Maybe that's changed. Maybe I'm wrong. So, wouldn't be the first time. Let's see. Boop, boop. Kevin says, Alvaro, so many variable to answer that, but basically no. Tech Junkie says LMAO 1200 CFMs through 6 ducts. That would be a sight. I see it all the time, pal. And they wonder why their fan motor keeps failing all the time, right? Ryan says, have you heard any hard dates on the A2L central air systems being available? Will it be the end of the year or summer of 2024? What is your best guess or estimate on time frame of availability? I have asked these questions to a few different folks, and the answer I'm getting is basically the time frame you're pointing out. I think it's possible that part of so there's two things here. There's the deadline coming, we all know about. I did a video on it. We know this deadline of January 1st, 2025 is coming, and 410A equipment can't be made after that, right? So we've got that coming. But then we've got this other side of the coin where some of these companies are already like, for example, Daikin already put out an R32 mini split, but some states haven't even approved it yet. They have not approved A2L refrigerants. So, even if they did have all this equipment out and you live in a state that they haven't approved them yet, I live in one. At least I haven't heard anything that they've approved them yet. So even if that equipment was out, I still couldn't get it unless I wanted to illegally smuggle it into my state, which I'm not willing to do. So I think that's part of it. So we got two sides there, but I think to answer your question, I think you are going to see some stuff start to maybe be rolled out in the summer, but realistically, they're going to probably wait till the last minute. They're going to push for probably the fall is when you're going to start seeing stuff really start get switched over. They're going to do kind of what they just did with the SEER 2 stuff coming out, where they, said, oh, January 1st is the date. And so you see, about October, November, the companies, distributors just stop selling the units. And then you're probably going to even see people stock up on the units. That's what they did with the SEER 1, the legacy stuff. And then you'll see that transition there as January 1st gets closer. So honestly, I think that's what you're going to see. But at this point, we're still waiting for all the states to approve them. And maybe once that happens, all the states approve the A2L refrigerants, maybe they will roll them out a little quicker. especially R32 is in tons of countries. It's very proven. I don't see why Daikin would hold back. I could see why these other companies going with these other refrigerants that aren't proven or tested, why they might wait a little longer and continue to test and so on. But the R32 that Daikin, Amana, and Goodman are coming out with, if all the states approve them, maybe they'll just go ahead and start, rolling them out. I don't know. But I think your time frame is about right. Tech Junkie says, I have 2.5 tons on 1,100 square feet, 9 registers. It's way too much. It's by state. North Carolina already has approved and installed R32 systems. I don't know without central air units. Yeah, I know North Carolina is one of them. And I think Mikey Pipes, I don't know if any of you watch his YouTube stuff, but he kind of rubbed it in my face. He got to install one of those R32 atmospheres. I don't think he meant to rub it in my face, but I was like, oh, he installed one before me. I was the Daikin guy. I was the guy that, was saying all that. But anyway, Mikey had a R32 atmosphere video. And so that tells me that wherever he's at, New Jersey or whatever state he's in, they've obviously approved them. So anyway, yep. Chloe says, thanks. You're welcome. Ryan says, thank you. Tech Junkie, thank you. So I can't say you're welcome to that one. Tech Junkie says, that occupation sensor idea is okay, but what about thermodynamics of mass, humidity, time of occupation? I think humidity is definitely plays a role in all of this, right? If you've got this house that's keeps heating and cooling and, changing based on where you're located in it, but, maybe they'll have all that figured out. I don't know. I mean, there's people way smarter than me that are engineering all this stuff. So, Brian says the intelligent eye is part of the Daikin ductless. Tech Junkie says, wait, they already have something like that. I stay in Hilton's and they have occupation sensors. That's where I got the idea. Is those sensors knowing if you're in the room or not. The PTAC will cool, but won't come down to set point unless you are in the room. Shayna, welcome to welcome to the show. Hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. You were talking about my problem and it was harmonics, and you were talking about how they run something up inside the walls, and if the lines get crossed, you have harmonics. I'm not sure if there's a question there. But I do want to take one quick break. We're getting towards the end of our show here, and jump over here. I had a couple. This week we had several emails come in on our YouTube videos. We'll usually pop up a little email that people can send emails to, and we don't monitor it that closely because honestly we get a bunch of junk in there. But we had a bunch of legit emails, and some of them came from you guys. I know one came from, I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but I know we've had a few of them. But here's one. Can I show this without showing his email? I think I can. A guy named Adam emailed us, and he said, so here's the deal. I've had a bunch of HVAC techs check out my leaky ductwork in the basement ceiling, but the dust and poor air circulation issues just won't budge. I heard about the whole AeroSeal thing and adding insulation to the attic and garage, but they're quoting me a hefty $8,000 for it. I'm at my wit's end, to be honest. You seem like that you've got a good handle on this stuff, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Got any advice or ideas that could help me out here? Is there something else I should consider before diving into an expensive solution they are suggesting? I'm trying to understand what the actual problem is. So if your ductwork is leaky, that's repairable. So if the ductwork is not falling apart, you can repair that, so depending on what the reason it's leaky, if you can get to the joints, you can actually repair that. I think AeroSeal, it might be an idea. There's other products out there as well that can also seal those ductworks and insulate them better. Aside from AeroSeal, there's the foam, the spray foam stuff too. And so, you know, $8,000 is a little, I agree, it's pretty hefty. And you might, you know, have somebody actually narrow down where the actual leaks are and see if they're actually repairable. And you might be able to save quite a bit of money there. And then there was another email, bear with me, that I wanted to share on our show. I get so much junk mail in this email though. Here it is. I think, yeah, here we go. Gary sent us an email. Gary has sent us a few things over the years. Let me see. Make sure it's something I can actually answer. 6 foot closer to the hallway. Gary, I'm going to have to dive into your email a little better before I just go into it on the show. So forgive me for that. And I thought there was one other one that we were going to show on our show. Here we go. And let me see if I can zoom in and show you all this email without sharing his email. Okay. Guy named Dave emailed us. And I don't know how to show this without showing his email and all that. So I don't know if Dave's on here with us, but he says, how can I stop condensate from dripping from the AC coil after the fan is off? The coil is clean, filters are clean, and have good airflow. Is there a way to extend fan runtime after the heat pump shuts off? Yes, there is. There's literally thermostats that you can turn on the extended fan runtime. The thermostat that I know just off the top of my head that has it is the Honeywell 8000, because we've turned it on for dual fuel systems multiple times. But I'm sure it's not the only one. I'm sure there's several out there that have extended fan runtime. The other thing I would look at, Dave, is I would have your AC refrigerant checked. And so if you've got this, and I don't know the configuration of your system or anything else, but if you've got, I've seen A coils on systems that will literally drip past the primary drain pan on the side. So it's supposed to condensate and then drain down into that pan, and it'll literally drip past it if the refrigerant is low or if the airflow, if there's an issue with the airflow. And so I would have that checked as well. Let's see. Ryan says, I think you can do this if this then that. IFTT sensors connect to the HVAC thermostat. I've heard of that as well. I have never done it though. I had a customer years ago that wanted us to do something like that because of his fire. He had a fireplace in there, and he wanted to set it up that if one thermostat got higher, then it, you know, but that's something you see more in commercial, I feel like. John says he's talking to Tech Junkie. Kevin says not a fan. Set and forget the thermostat. Yep. Michael says, my mom, welcome to the show, Michael. My mom system got a problem with the motor blower. I got an estimate for $1,450 for parts and labor. I have my cousin look at job Wednesday. He fixed my 5-ton American Standard for $500. Found. Nice. I'm not sure if there was a question there, Michael, so that's why I'm just saying nice. Let's see. Ryan says, I won't mind having capability of remote monitoring and fixing things, but not changing my temperatures, as that could affect my utility bill. Yeah, very true. And in fact, some of these systems that are set up to where it will remotely connect to the power company, that is some of the capability that they're being able to do. Philip says, I wonder what happened to Medea Evox. When I was looking at replacing my HVAC, I was bombarded with Medea Evox ads. I'm not familiar with, I know what Medea is, but we don't have a good supplier here. So let's see, Evox. let you guys see what I'm looking at. So I'm on their website. That's one of those window units right there. Looks like a side discharge outdoor unit. I wonder if the Hvac is sort of like, these non-communicating inverter systems. I don't know. I'm just speculating based on what I'm seeing so far on this website. Next generation cold climate heat pump. Yeah, I don't know. We don't see, there's no good suppliers from Medea in our area. I don't know if there's any good suppliers from Medea, period, here in the U.S., but I don't know, pal. I wouldn't even know where to get parts for one if I found one in our market. Emery says, why when the compressor fires and it is assumed to be capacitor failure? Well, it's not always capacitor. It just depends on what's the problem. Capacitor is meant to get that system on and running. It absorbs that initial spike in resistance that the system has, higher ohms as that system turns on. And of course, that's why the amps increase. And so the capacitor helps that system get up and rolling. But it doesn't always mean that the capacitor has failed. There are other reasons as well, such as a problem with the compressor itself, but there's not a lot there either. If it's receiving power, maybe that's part of it. Is it receiving power? If the board or contactor that's sending voltage to it, if there's an issue with that. But if all that's working correctly and it sends power to it, the capacitor is really the only other component there. Gary says Mitsubishi AC scans the room for occupants. If there is no one there, it dials back to conserve. Michael says leak in 5-ton American Standard plus change 2.5-ton plus put in 10 pounds of R22, which the air conditioning guy was going to charge $270 a pound. Yeah, 10 pounds of R22 right now. I don't know how long ago that was, but R22, I'll tell you this, I can't get it. None of my suppliers even sell it now. So it's basically priceless at this point. Guys are going to charge whatever they want to charge at this point because, you can't get it like you could anymore. Emery says, why when the compressor fires and the fan doesn't, it is... Oh, that's the same question. John says, what's the highest tonnage square foot you've ever installed? 1,500? ? Highest tonnage. I'm not sure quite what you're asking. If you're saying what's the highest tonnage system I've ever installed, well, that would be 7.5, because I don't do commercial. And if you're asking what's the largest square foot house I've ever worked in or installed a heating and air system, I don't remember how many exact square feet it was, but I think it was over 10,000. There was a house that we put a bunch of mini splits in years ago, and it had the walls that they're basically metal studs, and then they fill in the cavities with this foam stuff. And that house, that was a really big house. For my little company, it was one of those houses where you would walk in the front door and it had the, I guess you would call it a bird fountain, but it was like a statue with all these water, water falling all around. You'd walk in the front door and there's this gigantic room with, 30-foot ceilings and this statue in the middle of the space. It's just crazy, some of this stuff. Kevin says, Michael, time to change it out. Ryan says, we're going to be wrapping up here shortly, guys, so make sure you get your questions in. In the meantime, if you guys, if you've never joined us for a show, or if you have before, one of the things we do is we shout out good companies across the nation. If you know a good heating and air company, please share their name and where they are located, and let's show those guys some love. Ryan says, what do you think about returns on the ceiling and air vents in the ceiling? Wouldn't the cool air get sucked back in the return and they cool the room slower? Why not install them at different heights? We talked about this, I believe, last week, and I think the gist is, for the most part, it just depends on how high the ceilings are. But if you have a normal home with 8-foot ceilings, I'm not saying there wouldn't be any difference. You're going to have parts of the home that maybe the floors are warmer. If you lay down on the floor, you can tell a difference. But I would say in most homes, if it's just a normal house, it's insulated well, it's built well, and it's got 8-foot ceilings, I don't even think you'd notice. I said that, I think it was last week. It was either last week or the week before. And I'm sure there's heat and air guys that would argue with me, but I genuinely don't even think you would notice. If I had two houses, both built the same, and I did one with the return in the ceiling and the vents in the floor, and then I went over here and did the return in the ceiling and the vents in the ceiling, and both houses only have 8-foot ceilings, and I blindfolded you and walked you into both, I don't think you would notice. I don't think you would know. I think you can maybe make a guess, but I don't think you would even know. Michael says, my cousin charged me $500 and I bought, Michael's telling us about all his heat and air system repairs that he's made in the past. Michael, let me know if you have a question, pal. Brian says, different warranties. I have one 3 years old, compressor failed, carrier goo came out. That's a good word. It was goo. Goo came out of there. Jim says, on a budget, we need to replace furnace and air, 1,200 square foot ranch with partial basement, crawl space, Ohio area. What size AC? How many BTUs and efficiency? Jim, have a proper heat load calculation done. There's many variables other than just square footage that would play a role on what size heating and air system you should have. If you size it too big, you could have issues. If you size it too small, you would obviously have issues. Arch says, howdy, I'm late to the party. Good to see you, Arch. Jim says no and no. John says, does anyone have any experience with AeroSeal? I saw a company here in Virginia that was doing it, but I have not laid hands on any homes that had it done. I think it's a cool concept, but obviously one of you guys were talking about what some of the companies charge to do it. So, yeah. For those of you that don't know what AeroSeal is, AeroSeal. It's basically where they can, you see this picture over here where they got these tubes running. It's a product where they can seal the ductwork. Oh, I see. Envelope sealing and duct sealing. I was hoping to find a picture here. But you see their picture here where they've got the arrows coming out the side of the duct. And I thought normally they have like a little, almost like a little graphic that kind of shows how the product works. Maybe it's in here. Okay, so there they are sealing it. And they're cutting the hole. And they're going to install their machine. Says it finds and plugs all the leaks. Takes a couple hours. Yeah, they still don't do the graphic in this video. There's a graphic that will show what it kind of does. Oh, they slipped a picture of Mike Holmes in there. I love Mike Holmes' show, by the way. Little fun fact about me. This old house is showing it. Yeah, but they're still not showing the graphic. So anyway, what a waste of time that was. We're going to wrap up here shortly, guys, so definitely get your questions. And Arch says, hey, Carl, how's it going? Are these new refrigerants? as dangerous flammable as some tout. No, I have a friend of mine that lives in Europe that currently works on systems with R32, and he doesn't even believe it is flammable. He thinks that, I can't remember his whole spiel, but he was basically talking about how in Japan they say it's not flammable. So I think it's sort of like diesel fuel. If you pour gasoline on the ground and light it on fire, it's going to ignite and have this big almost like explosion of ignition. But if you throw diesel on the ground and try to light it, it won't light. It's not flammable in that way. It has to be under pressure. And so I kind of wonder if that's how these refrigerants are. They're mildly flammable and conditions have to be perfect for it to ignite. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's got to be under pressure kind of thing, which, in heating and air systems, it will be. R32 is already being phased out. Technically, plan is to have R32 phased out by 2030. Boop, 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 boop. Just scrolling through y'all's comments here. Sorry if I miss anybody, but I'm just trying to get caught up here. Boom. I don't know what Brian was talking about, but he said, just let it drip. Emery says, wait, is the Daikin Fit a mini split? It is not a mini split. It's a conventional split system, but the outdoor unit is a side discharge. So the outdoor unit kind of looks like a mini split, but it's not. It pairs with a furnace or an air handler, just like a conventional split system. Arch says, Medea package units I saw on the web look like Oxbox package units. Yeah, Oxbox is made by Medea. Even though it's a brand owned by a Train, it's manufactured by Medea. At least that's what I've been told. Boom, boom, boom. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through comments trying to get caught up. Okay, got a guy named Mike here. Welcome to the show, Mike. Air handler unit has no insulation inside, and it is horizontal in a hot Florida garage. Not good. It just started to condensate on the bottom of the unit and drip. Can insulation be added? What could cause this? Yes, it can be added. Maybe somebody removed it at some point. Maybe it was separating from the wall, and they maybe it was kind of getting up against something, maybe against the fan motor, and they just removed it, which is not great. But you can get somebody to install something called duct board, and they can literally put it in there and re-insulate. Big Ace says, doesn't make you prove it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I think we are finally catching up here. Okay. All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap up here in just a moment. Again, if you know any good heating and air companies, please give them a shout out wherever they are in the country. I like to end the show that way. That way, if somebody sees your comment and they live near you, they can find a good heating and air company as well. It's your way of showing love to someone who has taken care of you. So we are going to wrap up in just a moment. I do have another video coming out from the Daikin trip coming out here very soon. I'm working on it as we speak. I worked on it a lot today, and once it is done, I have to send it to them and make sure I'm not showing anything I'm not supposed to, and or saying anything I'm not supposed to. And then once they are okay with it, we'll be launching that. So that should be coming out, I would say, hopefully by the end of this week. Worst case scenario, beginning of next. And so that's one thing I've got coming out. That's going to be more focused on the Daikin Fit line itself and some of the people that we met that work on that. And so I had a really good time talking to some of those folks, and going back through some of this footage was quite fun as well. Just kind of reliving the experience a little bit and getting to hear some of their stories. Some of these folks, they're real people, and they have real things that they're happy about and all that sort of stuff, which is obvious, but it's just, I don't know, it just kind of gave me the warm fuzzies, going through some of this footage and hearing what some of them were saying and so on. It was just a really good time. And so I'm going to be sending that video. There's a couple moments in there that I wonder if they're going to ask me to remove it, because, I was kind of playing with a couple of the guys, just that's my personality. And, I don't know, life is short, right? So anyway, I don't know if my chat has stopped working on this. So let me go over here, because it seems like my chat has stopped working. And I need to find out. Yeah, I might be a little behind you guys. I've had this issue before, and I don't know. But yeah, my chat stopped working a while ago, it says. So, and I see where some of you guys actually shouted out some good companies, which is great. So I'm going to roll through these last couple comments here, and then we'll wrap up our show. I'm not happy that my chat stopped working on my system that I use, though. Always something, guys. Always something. Let's see. Michael, welcome to the show, says, evening. I've got an AC unit in the attic that's been sweating. I'm looking at using Armaflex to insulate the evaporator coil cabinet. Is that a practical thing to do, or is it recommended? When I say Armaflex, I'm normally talking about what insulates the what actually insulates the line sets. So I don't know if that's what I can't imagine that that's what you're talking about. So I'm not sure there. But you can insulate a unit, though. Like if you got an air handler up there, I have seen guys insulate the air handler with like bubble wrap and things like that to try to get it to stop sweating or whatever. It kind of reminds me of those water heater blankets that they make, right? To make the water heater a little more efficient. Tom says Border Heating and Air out of Wheaton, Illinois. So shout out to Border. Tom is showing you some love tonight. And if any of you guys are in Illinois, check out Border. Your opinion on microchannel coils. I assume you're talking to me, Brian. No comment. I don't have anything nice to say about them. Arch says bring on the Daikin Fit package unit replacement. That's funny. They make Armaflex sheets. Okay, cool. I was not aware of that, Michael. We don't. Well, I've never laid hands on one of those, but that's kind of cool. So if it's the same material, that rubbery kind of, material, then and the other good thing about that material is it stands up to moisture better than others. So if it is that same material, then I would assume that would work quite well. Tech Junkie says, have you ever had to insulate a liquid line in a hot attic to stop the liquid from flashing before getting to the metering device? Obviously on mini splits we have to all the time, but I don't know that I've ever had to do that in an attic. We've had some attics get pretty hot, so maybe there was times I probably should have. But that's interesting. All right, guys. Well, we're going to be back next week, Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern, 8:30 p.m., answering your questions live. I appreciate you guys and your support. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, we're trying to get to 100,000 by the end of next year. That's what my push is, and I've got a long way to go. So please hit that subscribe button. Share the channel with any family or friends you think that might need some heating and air advice. And I want to get to that 100K mark so that way we can maybe get behind some closed doors again. I actually have something on the horizon, another behind closed door. I'm going to throw a little teaser out there, but very similar to the Daikin trip. We have another little behind the scenes, showing you guys something that you don't normally get to see, homeowners get to see. And so that is, the deal here. We've got a couple more shout outs. Electra Gem says, shout out to Chesterfield Service in St. Louis, Missouri, family owned. So shout out to those guys if you're in St. Louis. Kevin says, shout out to, I'm not sure the name of there it is, Broward and Palm Beach. I don't know if that's the name of the company or not, but fast, honest, and 5-star rating. So good stuff there. And So I appreciate it, guys. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we'll see y'all next week. Make it a great one. Take care.